Did you know that the last time you went swimming in Massachusetts, you were probably swimming with the North American eel? While they may not make the most desirable swimming buddies, eels are an attractive aquatic species for study due to their many interesting biological features. Dr. Ken Oliveira, Associate Professor of Biology at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, studies the physiology of North American eels and how environmental changes influence their life cycle.
Eels, when you look at their range that they live in, we have them in South America all the way up through North America. Greenland, Iceland has American eels. And in that range, every habitat you can think of, you find eels. In the ocean, in the estuaries, in every type of freshwater you can imagine, swamps, lakes, rivers. In fact, of any fish in the world, they have the widest array of habitats that they use. Eels are very generalist organisms, so that in order to be able to survive in all those habitats, they have to be very highly variable.
This variability results from the eel's migratory reproductive patterns. Every American eel travels thousands of kilometers to the Atlantic Ocean to reproduce and subsequently end its life cycle. This process allows the mating of eels from different kinds of habitats, promoting biological diversity in the offspring.
Eels have probably one of the longest migrations you can imagine. An eel from the Pascamanset River right down the road here, every fall they all leave, they mature, and they leave, and they'll make a 3,000, 4,000 kilometer migration to the Sargasso Sea where they spawn. And every eel in North America goes to the same place to spawn.
After being born in the Sargasso Sea, baby eels start their journey home. Unfortunately, their voyage is not always unimpeded. Man-made obstacles make it harder for them to navigate to their destination.
Every spring when they're coming in, you can actually see the little eels, and they could have had a parent from, the mother could have been from Nova Scotia and the father could have been from Florida. So they all mix in the Sargasso Sea and they randomly distribute coming up. But once they get back to the coastal waters, that's when we have dams and other issues that have really become a problem with preventing them from getting to their upstream habitat.
European and Japanese eels are already on the endangered list. Commercial eel fishing is legal only in a select few places in America. In a recent article in The New Yorker, Sylvia Killingsworth wrote about how the North American eel is very close to being considered an endangered species.
We see now that in some areas there is a decline. In Lake Ontario, the Canadian province of Ontario, eels are listed as an endangered species. You cannot catch or collect an eel from that area. In the US, they are actually, as we speak, being reviewed for an endangered species status. So whether or not that happens or not is still being debated by the US Fish and Wildlife Service.
One of the first steps towards conservation is understanding how larval eels grow into adults. Dr. Oliveira and his team of student researchers are studying the dietary and environmental conditions that may allow the North American eel, or Anguilla rostrata, to complete its life cycle in the lab.
We have gotten very close. We have got them to spawn, but we cannot get those larval eels to grow into larger eels, and that's really where we're pushing our efforts now. Well, that's been a multi-year problem, or almost generational problem. The Japanese have been studying it in the Anguilla japonica, their version of our eel, for many years, and well over $20 million budgets have been invested in that, and they have gotten the animals to complete the life cycle. We're a little bit behind that. I don't have a $20 million budget to work with, but we have got them to reproduce in the lab, and right now, one of my graduate students has the world's record for getting an American eel larvae to live, and that's only been 23 days. We can't get them to feed. So if we can get them to feed, we'll have a way of completing the life cycle in the laboratory. So we actually have projects in the works right now to try and get at that. Right now we have about 40 eels we're maturing, and they all approach their time when they're ready to ovulate. So it's literally like living with 40 pregnant women who all have the same due date. You never know when they're ready to ovulate, so that we have to always be ready, and any hour of the day or night when they're ready, we have to time it. If we're off by an hour or two, we've lost a lot of time and effort, so we have to always be ready for them.
Dr. Oliveira's lab has a synergetic relationship with Alden Research Laboratory, a Massachusetts-based company working to develop fish-friendly turbines.
Eels are impacted by turbines, in the rivers. So they do a lot of studies where they actually mimic some of the situations that eels face. And when they're done with their eels every year, they donate them to us. So we'll get 300-meter-long eels every year to do for our fertilization work. So we've been very fortunate to have a nice relationship with them, and they've been supplying us with really big eels that come from Canada every year. We have the study where we're feeding the little glass eels different diets, and those diets have hormones in them that mimic their stress response or block their stress response. And we're trying to see if the eel goes into an environment that's stressful, high density, rough water, where they would become males. So that's ongoing. And when eels mature and go to the Sargasso Sea, they make that 3,000-kilometer migration, or 4,000 kilometers, they don't feed. They've actually lost their digestive system. And I have a student who's actually studying the loss of the digestive system and trying to see whether or not they lose it like a tadpole loses its tail when it's becoming a frog. Is it a natural genetic process? Or the fact that there's nothing to eat on the way to the Sargasso Sea, so they don't use that, and the muscle tissue of the digestive tract just atrophies, just like a muscle would do. So those are the three main eel projects we have going on right now.
Dedicated researchers like Dr. Oliveira and his students are working hard to keep the North American eel out of the endangered zone. Although they don't fit into the average person's description of fish, eels are a fascinating species worth protecting.
We tend to think of them as looking like snakes in the water, so many people are not drawn to them for that matter. They're not cute and cuddly fish. But nonetheless, there's so many interesting characteristics, so many great research questions that it's very easy to find something that you can gravitate to and actually just study and enjoy doing.